Richard was always fascinated by air hoses. From the moment he started working at the body shop, he was drawn to their sleek lines and the way they carried air to the various tools he used every day. But what started as a simple interest soon turned into an all-consuming obsession. Richard spent all of his free time at the shop, playing with the hoses and experimenting with different attachments. He loved the way they felt in his hands, the way the air flowed through them with such force and precision. But as much as he loved the hoses, he was also deeply ashamed of his fixation. His coworkers started to take notice of his infatuation and began to tease him relentlessly. They called him Hoseman and made jokes about his love affair with the air hoses. Richard tried to brush it off and act like it didn't bother him, but deep down he was crushed. He knew that his obsession was strange and that people didn't understand it, but he couldn't help how he felt. As the teasing continued, Richard started to withdraw. He stopped talking to his coworkers and isolated himself in the corner of the shop, clutching the hoses tightly to his chest. He would cry silently, feeling like a freak and an outcast. He wanted nothing more than to escape the taunts and ridicule, but he couldn't bring himself to leave the hoses behind. One day, Richard's father Jeremiah came to visit him at the shop. Jeremiah was a gruff and straightforward man, who had always been hard on his son. When he saw Richard crying in the corner with the hoses, he was shocked and confused. "What the hell are you doing, boy?" he demanded. Richard tried to explain, but he was too embarrassed and ashamed to speak. Jeremiah was furious. He saw Richard's obsession with the hoses as a weakness and a lack of discipline. He decided to teach his son a lesson, and he made a bet with him. "I bet you that you can't go a week without touching those hoses. If you do, I'll give you $1,000. Richard was stunned. $1,000 was a lot of money, and he desperately wanted to prove his father wrong. He took the bet, determined to show that he was stronger than his obsession. The first few days were tough for Richard. He found himself constantly drawn to the hoses, but he fought the urge to touch them. He focused on his work and tried to ignore the taunts of his coworkers. Slowly but surely, he started to feel better. As the week went on, Richard realized that he was learning to control his obsession. He no longer felt the need to isolate himself in the corner, and he started to interact with his coworkers again. He even found himself enjoying his work more. However, on the fourth day of the bet, Richard's resolve was tested. One of the air hoses was leaking, and he was asked to fix it. He was so focused on the task that he forgot about the bet, and before he knew it, he was holding the hose in his hands. He felt a wave of despair wash over him. Knowing that he had just lost the bet, Richard went to his father to confess. Jeremiah was furious. He accused Richard of being weak and lacking discipline. He refused to pay the bet, saying that Richard had failed. Richard was devastated. He had worked so hard to control his obsession, and now he was being punished for it. He felt like a failure, and he was filled with shame.